She sits ranked 38. She has never won at Roland Garros here. Be realistic about her chances now. The words landed during Naomi Osaka's press conference after her second-round victory here. And while the room laughed and cameras zoomed in, elsewhere the reaction felt completely different. On a nearby practice court, Philippine flags were already waving as Alex Eala silently heard the remark that would soon shake the tennis world. Naomi Osaka, a four-time Grand Slam champion, former world #1 and global fashion icon, might have meant it as a casual remark, but many viewed it as dismissal of more than one player it felt. In the eyes of fans, she underestimated an entire movement behind the rising Filipina star. What happened next shocked everyone. On May 26, 2026, inside the Roland Garros Media Center at exactly 6:47 p.m., a routine press conference shifted suddenly into the start of a rivalry. Fresh off a dominant first-round performance, Osaka leaned toward the microphone with calm control as reporters asked about possible future matchups. Her expression remained flat, her tone dismissive, and within moments those words sparked a reaction spreading across Paris and beyond quickly. The room exploded with laughter as cameras zoomed in, and the quote immediately spread across social media, clipped and shared within minutes. But nobody inside the press room realized that on a nearby practice court where Philippine flags waved proudly in the Paris air, 20-year-old Alex Eala had heard every single word spoken in that moment. 4 months earlier, the two players had unknowingly been linked through history at the Dubai Tennis Championships, where Eala became the youngest Asian player ever to reach 10 victories in WTA 1000 events, breaking a record previously held by Naomi Osaka by just 82 days. It was the kind of statistic most fans would overlook. Yet, it quietly hinted at a rivalry waiting to happen. One established superstar, one fearless rising talent. Both carrying the hopes of Asia onto the biggest stages in tennis. The Roland Garros draw finally placed them in the same quarter, immediately fueling speculation about a possible third-round showdown. Osaka entered the tournament as the proven champion. Eala arrived as the dangerous outsider. And during that press conference, the four-time Grand Slam winner had seemingly thrown the first punch. "Let's be realistic," Osaka said dismissively. But realism had never been the thing driving Alex. Moments later, her phone lit up with a message from coach Joan Bosch. The clip was already trending worldwide. #Eala will remember already began spreading rapidly across online platforms. Inside the quiet hotel room, Alex's mother Riza sat alone in the corner with clasped hands, whispering silent prayers under her breath. Softly, Eala watched the viral clip only once before setting her phone down and walking toward windows. Slowly in the distance, the Eiffel Tower shimmered against the Paris night sky while flags of many nations waved. Above Roland Garros grounds, far beyond, somewhere inside the players' lounge, Naomi Osaka was likely relaxing with her team, unaware that her comments had already triggered something dangerous inside one of the tournament's youngest competitors. "She doesn't know me," Eala whispered softly. Without hesitation, Riza looked at her daughter and said she will by the next morning, May 27, 2026. That quiet determination had already transformed into obsession. At exactly 8:14 a.m. on a private practice court at Roland Garros, the 20-year-old rising star trained with relentless intensity under soft Paris sunrise light. Long shadows stretched across the famous red clay of Court 7, a court once used by Rafael Nadal, a place where champions sharpened their games in silence alone. Eala had reportedly arrived before 6 a.m., her racket already worn down, and her shirt soaked with sweat as coaches Joan Bosch and Luc Boza worked her through endless baseline drills. Relentlessly pushed, they corrected her footwork, fired ball after ball across the net, and never once mentioned the controversy hanging over tournament. They didn't need to. Everyone already understood what had changed. They didn't need to say it out loud. The tension was everywhere. Naomi Osaka's press conference clip had already surpassed 20 million views online, while the #Eala will remember continued exploding across the Philippines, Japan, and every corner of the tennis world where fans love an underdog story. The WTA remained silent. Osaka offered no apology and Alex Eala refused to respond publicly, but her silence was never a sign of weakness, it was preparation. Again, coach Joan Bosch repeated as he fired another ball across the court. Eala stepped forward and crushed a forehand down the line, the shot landing directly on the baseline and sending a cloud of red clay into the air. Bosch nodded quietly. She had practiced that exact shot over 100 times that morning, but this one felt different. This one carried anger, focus, and purpose. The training session stretched for nearly 3 exhausting hours beneath the Paris sun. By the end, Ella's legs felt heavy, her arms burned with fatigue, yet mentally she had never been sharper. She never checked her phone, never read the endless comments flooding social media, and never allowed Osaka's words to break her concentration. Instead, she stored them deep inside her mind and transformed them into motivation. Later that morning, while sitting alone in the players' lounge eating a banana and slowly sipping water, her phone suddenly buzzed beside her. An unknown number had sent a short message. "Ignore the noise, play your game, you belong here." She stared quietly at the message on her screen. The number was unfamiliar, but the area code instantly caught her attention. Switzerland. Her mind immediately drifted to Roger Federer, to the platinum bracelet he had once handed her in Rome, and to the unforgettable words that came with it: "For the fighter who never quits." Alex Eala slowly typed back a short response: "Thank you, I will." Seconds later, another message appeared: "I know you will now go make some noise of your own." Eala slipped the phone back into her bag without asking who had sent it, because deep down she already understood some messages are not about the sender at all. They exist so the receiver remembers that someone somewhere believes in them. Meanwhile, across the Roland Garros grounds on the main practice courts, Naomi Osaka continued preparing for her second-round match with cold precision. The 4-time Grand Slam champion moved through every drill mechanically, her expression unreadable, and her focus locked in. A reporter eventually stepped toward the barrier and asked Naomi, "Have you seen Alexa's reaction to your comments?" Osaka kept hitting. Reporter pushed once again, harder. "But if you face her in the third round," Osaka interrupted immediately, still refusing to look up. Reporter backed away as practice continued on court, but the damage had already been done. Whether intentional or not, another spark had just been thrown onto a rivalry that was rapidly becoming impossible for the tennis world to ignore. Paris, France, May 28, 2026. Court Philippe Chatrier, 3:12 p.m. What happened next was the moment no one, especially Naomi Osaka, saw coming. Alex Eala's second-round performance had been calm, dominant, and ruthless as she dismantled her opponent in straight sets, 6-3, 6-2, moving through the Roland Garros draw with the sharp focus of a player carrying something personal inside her. Philippine flags waved proudly throughout the stadium, while chants of "Let's go Alex" echoed across court. Philippe Chatrier. But when the final point ended the match, Eala showed almost no emotion. She didn't celebrate wildly or throw her racket into the air. Instead, she calmly walked to the net, shook her opponent's hand, and slowly turned toward the cameras waiting courtside. During the post-match interview, the atmosphere instantly shifted. "Alex, another impressive victory." The interviewer began. "Yuri through to the third round at Roland Garros for the first time. How are you feeling?" The crowd leaned forward as cameras zoomed tightly onto her face. Eala paused for a moment before answering. "I'm feeling motivated," she said calmly. "More motivated than I've ever been." The interviewer smiled, expecting a standard answer about hard work. "Confidence here. What's driving that motivation?" For a brief second, Eala looked into the stands toward her mother, her coaches, and the sea of Philippine flags filling the arena. Then she turned directly toward the camera. "Heard what Naomi Osaka said about me?" she said. "About my ranking, about my chances here?" Instantly the stadium fell silent. "She said we should be realistic. She said I've never won a match at Roland Garros." Alex Eala's voice remained calm and controlled, but the fire in her eyes instantly changed the atmosphere inside the stadium. "She's right," Eala said. "I hadn't won a match here until today." The crowd erupted in cheers as Philippine flags waved wildly through the stands. Yet Eala wasn't finished. "I have a lot of respect for Naomi," she said softly. "She's a champion, a 4-time Grand Slam winner, someone I can only dream of becoming there." For a brief moment her expression softened before turning serious again. "But she doesn't know me. She doesn't know what I've been through. She doesn't know the sacrifices, the injuries, or the nights I spent crying alone in locker rooms thinking I wasn't good enough anymore." Now the stadium went completely silent as every word echoed across court. "Philippe Chatrier, she doesn't know about the flags, the chants, or the millions of people who believe in me." Her tone sharpened. "So let me be clear. I'm not here to be realistic, I'm here to fight. I am here to prove rankings do not measure heart now." The crowd erupted again as Eala stared directly into the camera. "And if we meet in the third round," she said firmly, "Naomi Osaka will not face the player she saw on paper. She will face the player that 110 million Filipinos have been cheering for since I was 13 years old." The stadium shook under deafening cheers. "Laban!" Eala roared as she lifted her fist toward the crowd. Then, without another word, she handed the microphone back to the interviewer and walked off the court while the roar of the audience continued echoing through Roland Garros long after she disappeared into the tunnel as cameras lingered on her silent exit through the corridor outside. The hashtag Aloft fires back exploded across social media within minutes of Alexa's emotional post-match interview as clips spread across every platform, reposted, remixed, and dissected by fans, analysts, and former champions alike, turning a single press room moment into a global tennis conversation that refused to slow down globally now. Millions watched the clip as fans, analysts, and former players debated whether the young Filipina star had just delivered one of the boldest responses Roland Garros had seen in years as debate erupted across commentary booths, broadcast desks, and locker rooms worldwide with replays circulating endlessly through highlight reels and fan edits that framed her words as either courage or provocation depending on who was watching while the tennis world split instantly into argument and anticipation, waiting for what Roland Garros would deliver when the draw finally collided on court stage. Inside the players' lounge, Naomi Osaka silently watched the interview alone on her phone. Her expression never shifted, but those nearby instantly sensed something different. She didn't smile. She didn't roll her eyes or dismiss the comments the way many expected. Instead, she calmly locked her screen, stood up without saying a word, and walked straight toward the practice courts. At that moment, the third-round showdown no longer felt like a possibility. It felt inevitable. The entire tennis world seemed frozen in anticipation as Alex Eala, the 20-year-old from Manila, who had entered Roland Garros without a single win at the tournament, suddenly became the center of global attention as anticipation spread through every broadcast network and training facility around the world, turning her into the most talked-about rising name in the tournament despite having never won a match on this stage before, yet carrying the weight of an entire nation on her shoulders while analysts began rewriting expectations point by point in real time as if every rally she played now carried historical weight, and the tennis world started watching her not as an underdog, but as a threat, one that no longer belonged in the background of the draw, with every media outlet now focusing on what she might do next as the possibility of a third-round clash became the defining storyline of Roland Garros, where every practice session, every press conference, and every glance toward the draw she'd only intensified the expectation building around her sudden rise in a tournament that had now shifted its entire emotional weight onto one young player from Manila, and the pressure became absolute silence everywhere. Whether she won or lost, she had already delivered the defining statement of her young career. But then on May 29, 2026, Roland Garros delivered another twist. For 3 straight days the sport had been consumed by one potential matchup. Headlines dominated sports media. Hashtags trended worldwide. Fans circled the date on their calendars, waiting for the collision between Alex Eala and Naomi Osaka. The fearless underdog against the 4-time Grand Slam champion, the young fighter who had been publicly dismissed against the superstar who had dismissed her. The tension surrounding the tournament had become impossible to ignore. It was supposed to be the match of the tournament, a third-round showdown that would decide not only who advanced but whose narrative would define Roland Garros. Then, without warning, the tennis gods intervened, not with drama, not with controversy, but with something far more ordinary and far more brutal. Naomi Osaka woke up on the morning of her second-round match, feeling it immediately. A stiffness in her lower back, dull and unsettling. She had felt something similar the night before, a sensation she had dismissed as simple fatigue. But during her pre-match warm-up, when she attempted to serve, the truth arrived in an instant. A sharp electric pain shot through her back. She froze. Rotation became difficult. Power vanished. Even basic movement felt compromised. The medical time outstretched for nearly 20 minutes. Physios worked carefully. Trainers exchanged quiet words, and Osaka tried to push through it with the discipline of a champion. But the clock was relentless. The match was scheduled for 2:00 p.m. The stands at Court Philip Chatrier were already filling. Philippine flags were waving. Expectation was building for what everyone believed would lead toward the inevitable clash. At 1:47 p.m., the announcement finally came. Naomi Osaka's official statement confirmed what the stadium had just witnessed. Naomi Osaka has withdrawn from the French Open due to a lower back injury. Her second-round opponent advances to the third round by walkover. The announcement hit Court Philip Chatrier like a shockwave. The roar that had been building collapsed into stunned silence. Flags that had been waving moments earlier hung still in the air. The anticipation, the tension, the entire storyline that had consumed the tournament vanished in an instant. Across the grounds, in a small locker room tucked away from the noise, Alex Eala sat on a bench with her racket bag at her feet and her shoes still tightly laced. She had been preparing for her own warm-up when her coach delivered the news. "Now." "She's out," he said quietly. "You're not playing her." Ella looked up immediately. "What injury? Lower back?" She withdrew. Silence filled the room. No celebration, no reaction, just a heavy stillness that settled over everything. Ella lowered her gaze to her hands. She had built herself around this moment, visualizing every rally, every breakpoint, every pressure-filled exchange against one of the sport's biggest names. Osaka's words had become fuel. The dismissal had become motivation. The imagined battle had carried her through weeks of preparation. And now there was nothing. "I wanted to play her," she said quietly. "I know," her coach, Joan Bosch, replied. "But sometimes the biggest battles are the ones that never happen. You said what you needed to say. The world heard you. Now you move on." Ella nodded slowly, though the weight of it lingered in her silence. She picked up her racket and walked out toward the practice courts. Anyway, the tournament wasn't over. Her journey wasn't over, but something inside her had shifted. The fire that had been burning for a confrontation now had no target. Later that day, Naomi Osaka posted a short statement on social media. Professional, controlled, empty of emotion. "I'm disappointed to withdraw from Roland Garros due to injury. My back needs time to recover. I'll be back for the grass season. Thank you for the support." The reaction online was immediate and divided. Sympathy poured in from fans and fellow players. Others questioned the timing. A few fueled speculation that she had stepped away to avoid